Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we're going to discuss what's better, ATRAC versus a locking differential, also known as a locker. We're going to discuss which is better. Well, to cut right to it, ATRAC is better. But before we get to why, let's go over the top 3 facts and myths of ATRAC. Alright, before I can understand what ATRAC is, got to understand what ATRAC is not. So let's go over ATRAC myth number 1, and that is ATRAC is not regular traction control. Most cars, this is called simply traction control, something like TC, or in Toyota they call it TRAC. This is not your cool aunts traction control that was on her 91 Chevy Lumina back in the day, and these traction controls on those older vehicles were known as babysitters or nannies, and that's not what ATRAC is. That is a typical traction control system, which basically works by cutting the gas to the engine when a vehicle is taking off from a stop or under acceleration, such as when passing. And the idea behind that primitive system is to keep the wheels from spinning when the vehicle's speed sensors sense that the wheels are slipping, such as when you're taking off from a stoplight and the road is wet. Okay, that's your old aunt's traction control system on her 91 Chevy Lumina. This is the system that got its reputation for being a nanny or babysitter, or taking all the fun out of skidding away from a stoplight. These systems simply cut the gas from the vehicle in order to stop the wheel that's spinning from spinning. So ATRAC is not that. That system, again, is regular, basic, primitive traction control, which again are still on modern vehicles, known as on the Toyota as simply the TRAC system or TRC system. Alright, myth number 2. ATRAC is not VCS or VSC, Vehicle Stability Control. VCS or VSC, I keep saying it backwards. VSC is Vehicle Stability Control. Now, what that is similar to the primitive first traction control systems that simply killed the gas, but this time it cuts power based on sensing what condition the vehicle is in. In a nutshell, it uses the vehicle's steering angle sensor to recognize that the driver's in a turn and is about to oversteer. So VSC is essentially an oversteer protection system. Most cars will have this VSC emblem or light or system that lights up on their dash, and it has little wavy lines underneath the icon to indicate that the car is about to oversteer. So VSC, Vehicle Stability Control, is not ATRAC. VSC is meant to prevent an oversteer situation when the vehicle is moving. It knows the vehicle is, not just moving, but moving and turning too. It knows you're turning because it's reading the steering angle sensor, it's reading the yaw sensor, or the lateral accelerator sensor. So it's reading various sensors, so it knows you're going around a corner. So ATRAC is not VSC. That's myth number 2. All right, lastly, the third myth about ATRAC is that ATRAC is not a new gimmick. ATRAC is not some new gimmick or idea that fell out of the sky. Indeed, ATRAC traces its roots back to something known as steering brakes or cutting brakes. And these were popular on dune buggies and also tractors. And such systems have been around for over 50 years. And essentially, steering brakes or cutting brakes allow the operator to brake one wheel or the other on an axle. And in doing so, consequently, if you brake one wheel, the traction, by nature of an open differential, will be sent to the wheel that's not being, that doesn't have the brakes applied to it. So it's ATRAC is a vast refinement of this idea of cutting brakes and steering brakes, which has been around for over 50 years. So it's not a new concept. This has been the concept, or the base concept, has been around for at least half a century. All right, so now that we know what ATRAC is not, let's move on to the 3 facts about ATRAC. So now that we know what ATRAC isn't, what is it? Well, ATRAC is basically a brake locking differential. So it is a locking differential system. It is locked, however, by the vehicle's brake system. Now that may seem a little weird, but mechanically, the differential doesn't care where it's locked. So whether it's a traditional locking differential that's locked with an actuator inside the differential, or whether the differential is locked through application of the brakes on one side of the axle, the differential doesn't care. It doesn't know or care where the locking action is taking place, as long as something is there to lock it. Clarification here: when we say the words brake, lock, or clutch, they all essentially mean the same thing. So when an actuator locks a differential, it's locked that way. If brakes are applied to another end of the axle and it's locked with brakes, it's locked. If it's clutched in any way in the same region or area, or even a different region, as long as it's somewhere in the system, it's locked. This is similar to early disc brake systems that locked the disc brakes inboard. So early disc brakes had the discs inboard close to the differential. In other words, close to the center line of the vehicle and not outboard where the wheels actually are. The car stops all the same. It doesn't care whether the brakes are inboard or outboard. So same with your ATRAC brake locking differential. The brakes are applied in the drive line and essentially lock the differential with the braking system. If anybody is familiar with tractors, you'll look on the wheels and wonder where the brake pads are. And there's no brake pads on certain tractors, many tractors, because the vehicle's braking system is actually inside its engine or transmission. So inside many tractors, there'll be a brake pad or a brake disc internal to the actual transmission. And it will stop when applied. This will brake all 4 wheels. Even though the braking system is inside the transmission and or engine, all 4 wheels will stop. The system doesn't care where the brakes are applied. Whether we're talking inboard brakes or outboard brakes, or a braking system that is inside of a transmission, such as the case with tractors, doesn't matter where it is, as long as it's somewhere in the system, the braking action occurs. So that's the first thing to understand about ATRAC, is it is a locking differential known as a brake locking differential. And thus, since the braking action is applied within the system, the differential does indeed lock. Now, what's interesting about the system is it's automatic. It's always on, and due to the nature of using various sensors such as the wheel speed sensors and all the other earlier mentioned vehicle sensors, the system knows precisely when traction is lost on one wheel and applies the brakes to that wheel that's losing traction momentarily to send traction to the wheel that does have traction. This happens within milliseconds and happens so fast that even though the system is technically reactive, Toyota engineers took it upon themselves to go ahead and call it active traction control, or ATRAC, versus reactive traction control. Now, how did they come up with this name, active track, if it's truly a reactive system? Well, they measured it, and in their measurements, the ATRAC system, or active track system, reacts so quickly it might as well be essentially a non-reactive system. In other words, it behaves exactly like a standard locking differential. If any of that didn't make any sense, the bottom line is the system is so fabulously fast and instantaneous and effective, it is equivalent to a standard locking differential in all practical applications, and has been proven so in tests. So that's why they make the bold statement that it's active traction control, or ATRAC. All right, fact number 2 about Toyota's ATRAC system is a big one, and that is it simply works. There's no other way to prove or disprove the effectiveness of ATRAC than to simply look at videos that show evidence of the system working. There's virtually no videos out there that show ATRAC not working when used properly. There is a slight learning curve for those not familiar with the system, but when used properly, ATRAC demonstrates the exact same, if not better, traction mechanics as locking differentials. Since the ATRAC system is on all 4 wheels all the time, once configured when the vehicle's in 4 low and ATRAC is engaged, since all 4 wheels are constantly sensing trouble and reacting essentially instantaneous, it does have the effect of locking differentials. But how do we know that? Well, you have to put it to the test, and Toyota powertrain engineers have no doubt tested the system, and these videos and video demonstrations speak for themselves. The system simply works. It does not lose forward momentum, the wheels do not spin, traction is not lost, the vehicle does not struggle. It's not a case of, does ATRAC kind of work? Does it sort of work? Does it kind of sort of work? Does it kind of mimic a locking differential? Does it maybe kinda come close to a locking differential? It is equal or better. It's not a matter of does it get close, it simply works. Again, the proof is in the pictures, in the video, and in the measurements. Toyota's ATRAC system has been out for years now and continues to be used solely on their flagship models as a testament to their confidence in its off-road abilities. Remembering that the roots of the ATRAC system lie in the Toyota Land Cruiser, which is essentially has its heritage as a Jeep Wrangler clone, which of course has premier off-road abilities and history. So my point is, of all this babbling, is that the engineers who decided to remove lockers from their flagship Toyota and Lexus models, such as the Land Cruiser and the Lexus LX, they didn't make such a decision lightly, and they certainly didn't want to go in a backwards direction by removing mechanical lockers and replacing them with this ATRAC system. The Toyota drivetrain engineers, who probably have over a century of collective off-road engineering drivetrain experience amongst them around the world, made the decision that ATRAC will be the premier flagship off-road system based on their tests. In our tests, we concur that the system is freaking amazing. All right, so fact number 2 about ATRAC is a follow-up of where we ended with fact 1, but it needs to be reiterated. This is a fact. As mentioned just a second ago, ATRAC is the top-end quote-unquote locker, or in this case, technically ATRAC is a brake locking differential system. But it must be noted that this is their top-tier flagship locker system. This is what Toyota believes to be the best of the best for off-roading and doing what a traditional locking differential traditionally does. We know this because, other than the name, which implies a lot of confidence by going in and calling it an active system when it's truly reactive. But anyway, other than the name, the marketing speaks for itself. In other words, worldwide, Toyota sells their lower-end models with mechanical locking differentials, and they'll sell their higher-end models with the ATRAC system. So a lot of this comes down to many different factors. Some of it's regional, some of it's cultural, but overall, Toyota understands that ATRAC is superior to lockers, thus it's reserved for their top-end or flagship models only. Overseas, the new Land Cruiser 300 series can be optioned with 3 locking differentials, traditional locking differentials. This is contrasted with the US market Lexus LX 600 and the African market LX 600 Lexus, which is considered Lexus's best of the best Land Cruiser variant. This system, this top-tier Lexus LX 600, comes with the ATRAC system. So one must ask yourself, why would Toyota/Lexus, why would they option to put a much more expensive system ATRAC system in their flagship vehicle instead of using a much cheaper mechanical locking differential system. So I think the answer to that's very evident. The reason why Toyota reserves ATRAC for their top tier or flagship models is because they believe it's superior to a locking differential. It's certainly more expensive and more complex as a system. So it's not a factor of cost savings. As you could ask yourself, well, why don't they just put on, if mechanical locking differentials are superior, meaning traditional lockers are superior, why not just throw those on the top-end model? Why throw on ATRAC instead? Or let's say it in reverse. Why don't the lower-end models have the ATRAC system, and why don't the top or flagship models have mechanical lockers? So that's fact number 2. Toyota believes ATRAC is superior to mechanical or traditional locking differentials, which is why the ATRAC system is only available in its top tier off-roading models. Alright, lastly, the third fact about Toyota's wonderful ATRAC system is a hilarious reiteration of fact number 1, which is, no, really, it really works. Seriously. So, I guess you could call this cheating a little bit, but it needs to be reiterated. Fact number 3 about ATRAC is, seriously, it really freaking works. Now, there's no way to say that without saying it again. So, what is meant by fact number 3 is the evidence. The evidence shows that it works amazingly well. So much so that you could argue that the system works better than traditional locking differentials. Now, I'll leave that up to you to decide. We won't go there. But to say that the ATRAC system is inferior to traditional locking differentials has to be matched or backed up with some sort of evidence. So we will present a challenge to the viewers, and that is, if anyone can show or link a video where a Toyota with an ATRAC system cannot get out of a situation unless it has a traditional mechanical locking differential. Until anyone can source such a video, then it must be stated that ATRAC is equal to or superior than a traditional locking differential. Now, a lot of this may be perceived as a rant, even a personal opinion, and many may even be triggered because humans naturally are creatures of belief and convention, and to put it mildly, do not like change or new things. With that said, humans have the intelligence to be objective and evidence-based in their decision-making as well. Therefore, I implore anyone considering the Toyota ATRAC system and its use to simply look at the evidence. And you'll see clearly that the system works amazingly well. So the moral of the story, the moral of this video is, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about Toyota's ATRAC system, and it's gone on way too long. It's gone on for many, many years, and it's becoming a bit of a mythology that there's nothing beats a locking differential. And when in fact, technology has improved over the years, and the evidence shows that Toyota's ATRAC system matches it, if not supersedes it, in nearly all off-road driving situations. It's important to dispel the myths for many reasons, one being safety, one being enjoyment. But I think thirdly, the advancement of the technology. Toyota engineers did not design the ATRAC system to take joy away from your life. They did not design the ATRAC system to rain on off-roaders' parades. Toyota engineers who have a devout commitment to the heritage of the Jeep Wrangler and off-roading in general sought out to create an improvement on mechanical locking differentials to further your enjoyment as an off-roader. And so it's in that spirit that this video is made. ATRAC is a positive thing, it's positive for your life, and the Japanese engineers over there in Japan that are wise beyond words those engineers designed this with your enjoyment in mind. And the system simply works because they wanted it to work for your off-roading enjoyment. So let's put the myths to rest. Get out there, hit your ATRAC button, or if it's automatic, go out and enjoy your ATRAC system. You have a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous technologically advanced brake locking differential which has roots that go back at least 50 years in concept and over a century in passion and off-roading tradition. If you've enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you and have a great day.